Good evening, everyone. My name is Thomas Heuser. Welcome to the Idaho Falls Symphony pre-concert talk on this Thursday evening. We are so delighted to have you with us. I understand that my internet might be having some issues. It's the continued story of the saga of this virtual format. So I hope I'm coming through and we have a chance to talk about this wonderful concert coming up on Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. Mountain Time, Music, the Food of Love, which will be our 17th annual Red Dress Concert, which is a collaboration with the Eastern Idaho Regional Medical Center celebrating Heart Health Month. It's a wonderful event for us, one that I miss dearly and that we had hopes might be one of our first in-person concerts back after the closures 1 year ago. You know, it was our last Red Dress Concert, the music of Danny Elfman, that ended our season. It was the last concert we had in person before we canceled. So I am thinking very fondly back on last year and missing all of you, missing the orchestra so much. It's just... Good, Mother. Thank you. I'm coming through well. I'm glad you're here. Hi, Mom. I love you, and I love all of you at the Idaho Falls Symphony. We have such a wonderful group. And actually, these pre-concert lectures, I was thinking back, you know, we used to have them in a small side room and off the side of the Performing Arts Center there. We overfilled that room. So many of you came out to hear these talks. And so we moved it into the main theater, and I would speak on now from the stage with a microphone, and people can come in and start to enjoy the talks, and the audiences are just getting bigger and bigger. So we really hope for that momentum to continue when we're back in person. So our concert tonight, Music, the Food of Love. Very excited to have you with us as we chat about this concert, which has 9 works by 9 composers that span the gamut from the classical era to romantic, verismo, impressionism, modernism, pop music, film music. It is a great variety, and it has some really fun recordings that we know you're going to enjoy for this love-themed concert. And we call it Music, the Food of Love, which of course is part of the opening line of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, which, if you can believe it, was written in 1602, 400 plus years ago. It's really hard to believe and just shows the genius of Shakespeare's staying power. But the opening of Twelfth Night, the first line is, "If music be the food of love, play on." And it's the character saying that he's so much in love, he's so tortured by love, and he hopes that music might be food for love. So play on, give me more music so that I might satiate this need for love that I have. If it's the food of love, play on, give me more, so that, like eating too much food, I might actually fill my appetite and not be so preoccupied and dominated by these feelings of love. So that's, you know, in Shakespeare's world, what the sentiment is that runs through that. And we have really embraced that as our motto this year, play on. We are hoping that by our efforts to play on this season, to keep the music going, we too might satisfy that appetite for love and human connection that is missing right now. We might somehow cure the longing for each other's presence and the bitterness of our separation that we've endured during the pandemic. Our symphony family is a community that thrives on being together, and in the concert hall and pre-concert talks and parties and galas, and so we will play on. We have been playing on, and we want to make sure that we are, because it fills our hearts and it helps us tame that feeling of not being connected right now. Of course, this is also Valentine's Day weekend, and it's a time to express our gratitude and love for family. Hi, Mom, friends, all of you, and partners, loved ones. It's so important to connect with everyone right now and to express that love. And of course, the other thing is that this message of the Heart Health Month, Healthy Hearts, is a very important part of this message for this concert that the Symphony and Eastern Idaho Regional Medical Center put together. I'm here broadcasting live from my home, and hopefully the internet's hanging in there. So some very emotional and heartfelt music on this concert. It is in some cases explicitly about love. These are pieces that have love as their theme. But it's also about love's emotional extremes. A lot of the emotional extremes on this concert come out of, I think, sort of our relationship with love, and whether it's the best of times or the worst of times, and really that dichotomy that is there in the love as the theme. It's a concert of romantic music in two senses: the capital R, romantic in the sense of the period of music history in the 19th century, plenty of that, of course, on display, but also romantic just in its character, music that is heartfelt and emotional rather than bombastic or, fugal, like technical or anything like that. A lot of it is just very much emotional, on the sleeve, and very lovely to listen to. We will, of course, get into that dichotomy and the difference between love requited and unrequited, heartbreak and sorrow and loss and all of that. It's very much a part of how music can express that sort of intensity of the emotions. So we have all of that at play with this wonderful program, these 9 composers, these 9 works. I'm going to actually tonight take it a little bit out of program order in order for us to sort of walk through the composers chronologically so that we can see the different ways that the music sort of evolves, and that some of these emotional threads evolve over the course of the historical content there. So backing up to the oldest work on the program is from Mozart, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. This is his third divertimento in F major, what he called one of the Salzburg symphonies, because he was still a child in Salzburg writing in this sort of symphonic format, but it's a work written for string quartet or string orchestra that Mozart wrote when he was 16. So not necessarily a lot of experience with love at that age, we don't think, but still in all of Mozart's music, there is palpable joy, palpable expression, and so much emotional content. So this is a 3-movement divertimento for strings. It has the first movement, absolutely sheer joy, just an upbeat and lively character. The second movement is the slow movement that I think has the more romantic character, extremely sweet lyricism that you'll recognize. Bum, bum, ba, da, dee, da, 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 dee, da, da. Just so sweet and lovely. And that sweetness, I think, is the love quality, the sort of the joy and the happiness that melody evokes. And the last movement, again, more sort of playfulness. It's a rondo finale, just so upbeat and joyful. And we have Mozart in our lives for a good reason. His music has incredible staying power, and it's part of so many of our appreciation for classical music and concert music in particular. We have so much nostalgia built in around Mozart's music, his style. And even though he was 16 when he wrote this particular divertimento, he, of course, went on to tackle virtually every aspect of the human experience in his music. And in my view, for that reason, was the sort of conduit between the classical and the romantic era being the era of this intense focus on the human experience rather than the sort of, music for music's sake in the classical period. Now in the romantic period, we need to say something about what it's like to be in this state of human emotion. And so love is playing into it in a major way in all of Mozart's mature works, especially the opera Don Giovanni and the other Da Ponte operas. The intensity of Don Giovanni when Mozart was all of 31 years old, towards the end of his life, gets into every aspect of how music can convey the depths of sorrow, the sort of wickedness of Don Juan, and as he toys with people's emotions about love. And Mozart just puts a point on all of that with the music. Depending on how the music is going, how the action is going. And that was truly his contribution, I think, to that evolution into the truly romantic era, capital R. So here we go into capital R. That's our only classical composer on this concert. And we jump ahead 100 years now to the music of Piotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky. Tchaikovsky, again, the poster child of the Romantic era, one of my favorite composers. I know I say that every time, so I might as well say it now. We are playing what's called the Andante Cantabile by Tchaikovsky. It is the second movement of his first string quartet. And I should mention that how we did this concert, again, it's the third iteration or so of what we had planned to do because of the pandemic causing us to change plans over and over. We made a recording just a few days ago in Idaho Falls at the Civic Center for the Performing Arts with our string quartet, Emma Rubinstein, Ariel Loveland, Lisa McNiven, and Robert Tuller, along with our principal pianist, Stephen Thomas. And they were gathered, distanced, masked with our film crew, Alexandria Pugh, executive director, and Joanna Groh, director of operations. In the background, I want to shout out to all of our wonderful symphony staff. Caleb and Ellen as well. Thank you all for all that you do. But we gathered this small group and performed these works for strings and piano. And this concert also has a couple of other really fun production features that I'll be getting into more detail here in just a few minutes. But so this string quartet of Tchaikovsky, here we are, we're in 1871 now instead of 1772 of Mozart. And so this Andante Cantabile movement of Tchaikovsky's first string quartet has really taken on a life of its own. It has this various arrangements. There's an arrangement for a string orchestra. There's an arrangement for solo cello and orchestra, I believe. But it's been extracted from the original string quartet and is, again, one of Tchaikovsky's most popular standalone pieces, I would say. He's thriving in this romantic environment. He is a composer who definitely personified that romantic era focus on the composer as artist, as individual, his own background and his complex relationship with love and relationships in his lifetime informed the passion and the intensity of all of Tchaikovsky's music. He really, I don't know, he had a lot to say, and he really said it in this kind of setting. Cantabile meaning literally sung or singing, and it is this melody that has, I can't wait to hear it. I would sing some of it. It's not quite in my range, but the quality of the sung line is like a lullaby. It's as though it's the innocent love of a mother and child. And that innocence, I think, is at the heart of this particular romantic work. And that relationship of mother and child, that sort of simplicity, the naivete, that is the one side of romanticism, I think, that Tchaikovsky really was clinging to, given the difficulties that he was having with love and relationships and his professional relationships in particular. It really made it so that these kinds of simple statements were his most pure, and you can really get a sense of his love, as it were. I think there's a lot of love in this music, and it sounds terrific. I think the term cantabile could probably be applied to everything Tchaikovsky, even the Nutcracker Cantabile at some level, because even those dances have the most memorable melodies and tunes, and it's just infectious, his music. So that is due to his wonderful lyricism and melodic mastery. And so this Andante Cantabile is a wonderful example of Tchaikovsky's romantic character. We move just a few years ahead to 1888 with the music of Sir Edward Elgar. Edward Elgar is English composer who trained in the Romantic era and then flourished in what's called the modern era, right around the turn of the 20th century. Some of his most important works in response to the First World War in the 19-teens. But his work, Salut d'Amour, literally means love's greeting. The work was an engagement present for his wife in 1888, Caroline Alice Roberts. He originally gave the work a German title, Liebesgruß, but the publisher changed it to Salut d'Amour, the French. I think that was probably a wise choice. Salut d'Amour sounds a little more romantic than maybe Liebesgruß. Kind of depends on your love of French or German. But the first recording of the orchestral version of this piece, I have to make a note, was with Elgar conducting in 1915 for the Gramophone Company, and that was part of a real legacy that Elgar has with the early recording technology, and which of course then changed the way music was disseminated in the 20th century. But for him to have written this piece in 1888 and then made it be one of his initial recordings with orchestra in 1915 is really fascinating to me. And I love to think of Elgar up there on the podium trying to evoke the emotions in this work, which are powerful. It is one of the sweetest tunes I can imagine. It's dee da da dee da 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 dee bum bum Ti da ti da 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 dee bum bum. Just has this, again, sort of lullaby-esque, I would say, sort of in the manner of Tchaikovsky. But the music is really saying something. The music is really, I don't know, descriptive in its romanticism and in the love that it's trying to convey. If it's an engagement gift, obviously written for Miss Caroline Alice Roberts, I think that's really charming that there would be that specific intent of trying to woo someone and make someone fall in love with you. There is that sort of pull that the music has on the listener, and it makes you kind of fall in love with Sir Edward. It's very charming. Now, our recording of Salute d'Amour needs special note. This is really fun. 21 of our Idaho Falls Symphony musicians participated in a group recording that was a mashup that they recorded their parts at home to a track that was originally played by Stephen Thomas, our pianist. We distributed that track thanks to the technical wizardry of our friend Addison Balloff. We put all the tracks that the musicians recorded at home together. And so the audio is our players. They're all recording at home. We've done a couple of these this season, and they are so fun. And it really is, I'm going to be tempted to play it like 3 or 4 times in the concert because it just moves me so much to see all these musicians whom I miss, and they're emoting in this wonderful tune, and it looks beautiful. So bravo to Addison for your videography and the work that you did to put that together, and huge thanks to you 21 musicians that participated in the project. So more romantic music, more heartfelt music, super emotional stuff, moving into the more music from the late 1880s, 1890s, the music of Pietro Maskani. Pietro Maskani, an Italian composer most known for his 15 operas and his masterpiece, Cavaliera Rusticana. This is a piece from 1890, and it's responsible, it's said, for ushering in this Verismo movement in Italian dramatic music. So we'll get into that Verismo in just a moment, but he was notably successful in his lifetime. You know, not a lot of composers can say that, but when he got to the point of his career where Cavaliera Rusticana was premiered, it was immediately popular, and it threw Mascagni into all these appointments, conductorships. He was very, very well known in Italy during the later part of the 19th century and the early 20th century. And he lived until 1945, actually. So lived quite a full life. Now, Verismo, from this Italian opera Cavaliere Rusticano, Verismo literally means realism. And so realism in the late 19th century and early 20th century was a reaction to the Romantic period. You know, in the Romantic period, we were saying it's a little more of an idealized form. The characters are, you know, they have a personality, but it is, again, it's sort of archetypal. There's a bigger meaning to the works. The Verismo movement was in reaction to that, and they tried to make it much more human, much more down to earth, much more personal, and as a result, more tragic, more angst, more suffering. And, you know, you guessed it, the emotions are right there on the sleeve. The characters go through it all. They suffer. In most cases, they die. The audience leaves bawling. So we're hopefully not going to kill anyone in the operas this evening, but we are hoping to really tug on the heartstrings with this one. The Cavaliere Rusticano, of course, ushering in the Verismo movement, but then there's really famous examples, especially with Giacomo Puccini's operas La Bohème, Madama Butterfly, Tosca, of course. You know, these works that have an incredible staying power in the repertoire, mainly because of that intense emotional content. So the opera set of Cavaliere Rusticana is set on Easter morning. The characters are embroiled in this very complicated series of love affairs. Of course, you know, someone's cheating on this person and thinks they're out of town, and they're all trying to get them buy the best wine for Easter, and it's got all these complexities, but really the heart of it is the longing and the need for the love of another, and they just are beating themselves up by the adultery that's going on and the miscommunication, and it's just torturous. And as that is playing out on Easter morning, in the background there's this church music, so you have the dichotomy of the love and the higher love of God and all of this playing in together, then the stage parts, and you have this intermezzo from Cavaliere Rusticana that is arguably Mascagni's most famous melody. It's a very short intermezzo, and of course an intermezzo has a huge life of its own as a piece of instrumental music or as an interlude in a play or a work of music drama. But this particular intermezzo is very short, very concise, but very emotional. And so it's almost as though this drama's been taking place, everyone clears the stage, and the orchestra participates in the action of the love story by giving this incredible lament. Now, I don't think it's melancholy per se, but it is definitely emotional. There is a sadness to it. There is a kind of bittersweet quality, as though, is this going to be resolved? Are we going to get to the end of this show, or is everything just going to fall apart? And there's that tension in the music that I think is the hallmark of this realism, the realistic Verismo style that Mascagni is so famous for. Highly romantic, these soaring melodies, and a wonderful orchestration. So here again in our COVID times, we have the string quartet with Stephen Thomas playing the piano with the score, so playing the woodwind parts, the harp parts, and we have this quintet of musicians playing this incredible music that you have to imagine when it's coming out of the orchestra pit in the midst of this opera. It's one of the most powerful moments in the show, and there's not an actor on stage. So truly an effective piece of music to try to raise the temperature and to sort of, again, have the orchestra participate in the romance and the drama. That's it for the 19th century. Now we're in the 20th century with two pieces from the classical canon, well, the classical concert canon, before we get into the sort of Pops canon, as it were. This Red Dress Concert typically is our Pops concert, and so we wanted to sort of pepper this program with popular music, popular selections, film music selections, as well as some of these other love theme works from the classical, romantic, and modern era. But we're moving now to Claude Debussy, who, I already said Tchaikovsky was my favorite, but Debussy is right up there. Just such a unique voice as a composer. Claude Debussy is famous for the Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun, which will be on our season finale. He's famous for the incredible tone poems, La Mer, Daphnis and Chloe, another wonderful love story by Debussy. Excuse me, that's his counterpart Ravel. So, but both of them are involved in this era, beginning of the 20th century, of Impressionism in music, particularly French and Russian music around the turn of the century, the fin de siècle in Paris. And it's really noteworthy that Debussy did not consider his music to be impressionistic, so to speak. Impressionism in art is Monet and Manet and Van Gogh, all of these wonderful painters who had that style, and they actually talked about their style as Impressionism, where it's a play on light and boundaries, the blurring of the boundaries, the creating light as a sort of character and color, and creating mood and space without necessarily defining what are the edges of reality. That was the Impressionism that the painters were after. And we get that in Debussy's music through more ambiguous harmonies, much less of a structure than anything like you would find in Mozart or even Tchaikovsky. It's sort of slower. The pace of music is spread out a little bit more, and so you have time to sort of revel in the color of Debussy's music. And that's exactly what we have on this particular program. We're playing the Danse sacrée et danse profane, the sacred and profane dances for harp and chamber orchestra. Now, of course, our chamber orchestra options are quite limited, but our principal harpist, Alicia McQuay, recorded the Debussy dances with her husband, Michael McQuay, in their home. Michael's a wonderful pianist who performed our Carnival of the Animals solo last year. And so they have provided this beautiful recording of the Debussy sacred and profane dances. And it was actually recorded, I'm being told, at the campus of BYU, Idaho. So both there on the faculty were sure to have a wonderful recording of these dances. And for me, it's not a love piece. It is not necessarily a love theme. It's not about love, but the sacred and profane dichotomy is analogous to what we're talking about with the love that is the sweet and innocent versus the love that is the torturous and passionate. The sacred and profane, the sort of heavenly and ethereal versus the profane, so to speak, the earthly and the grounded and the human. And so that contrast of the unrealizable versus the true is what I think is is what comes out of this music of Debussy. The piece comprises 2 dances, but they are seamless. It does go from one to the next. And so you have just this sort of single tone poem that paints this beautiful picture, these beautiful colors. The harp, of course, this piece was written in 1904 for the sort of showing off of this new model Pleyel harp, which did kind of continue to modify, and the Pleyel harp is not what a concert harp is anymore, but Debussy was using this music to show off the chromatic capabilities of that instrument, and also to just create what is now considered one of the great works of chamber music for the harp. Again, it's fascinating to hear Debussy's music in the context of a concert that also includes Mozart, because there couldn't be a bigger contrast of intensity, mood, and character. It's so sublime. It has this wonderful ethereal quality. And you get, I think, I love the sonic nature of Debussy's music. I love the colors and the sound. So for me, it is romantic and it is heartfelt in its spirit. It just doesn't necessarily have love in the title. But we love Debussy, and it definitely is music that is, I would say, highly romantic. Set 1905 now, moving from France back to Germany, we have the music of Fritz Kreisler. Fritz Kreisler is one of the most important violinists of all time, truly one of the great virtuosos of the last century. He is Austrian born, but considered himself an American composer. He's one of the most noted, again, one of the greatest violinists of all time. And so he wrote in 1905 this set of dances called Old Viennese Melodies. It is a set of 3 short pieces for violin and piano. 1905. The pieces are actually performed or heard separately most often. They're titled Liebesfreude, Liebesleid, and Schön Rosmarin. So in English, Liebesfreude is love's joy, Liebesleid is love's sorrow, and Schön Rosmarin is lovely rosemary. Now, Liebesfreude and Liebesleid are very often paired, and Schön Rosmarin is usually performed separately. And that's what we've done this time. We have our concertmaster Emma Rubinstein performing with Stephen Thomas on the stage of the Civic Center for the Performing Arts. We have, again, built in to the title of these 2 old Viennese folk melodies, the joy and the sorrow of love. It really does put them both on display, and it couldn't be more clear. Liebesfreude, love's joy, is this sort of ebullient, sort of confident, upbeat music. It has this sort of confidence to it, and it's very upright. And then the love sorrow is much more subdued, heartfelt, sentimental, and a little bit sad. And I think that it gets us to really the 2 ends of the extreme that we're talking about. It couldn't be more black and white. And I think for folk music, that's particularly important. You know, if you're trying to really get at something in this academic context of concert music and that kind of a thing, you have all of these tools at your disposal where you can create variations and modify the melody in ingenious harmonic ways and all those things. But when you're just talking about a folk tune, there is a baseline simplicity to that form that doesn't allow you to dress it up like that. So it is really basic in its emotional content. And so it's perfect for this program in terms of showing off both Emma's ability to emote the 2 sides of those characters, but also for us to see right there in real time the 2 extremes of the emotions of love. I think the Liebesleid, the love sorrow, it reminds me, it could also be in that sort of lullaby vein. It does have that sweetness to it, but it is not innocent in the way that Tchaikovsky's lullaby is innocent. It has in it a little bit of that Verismo character, a little bit of that raw human emotion that you get a little bit more drawn in and a little bit, again, sad, I think, by the quality of sound. It's not that sweet simplicity at all. So we love this Liebesfreude and Liebesleid of Fritz Kreisler. And those are, again, wonderful features for our concertmaster, Emma Rubinstein. So that's it for 20th century classical concert repertoire. And then we have 3 selections from the 20th century from the popular repertoire. And now we move into what love is capable of from a marketing standpoint. There's so much to be said for making a song about love. There's a great quote from the Beatles that said, as long as we had love in the title, we were going to write a hit. They just knew that was going to be something that was popular. It's a pervasive theme for them, and they had marketing figured out, I would say, the Beatles. But in any case, we're going back first to the 1940s. This is La Vie en Rose is the name of the popular tune that we play here. It is music by Louis Guglielmi, aka Louis Guy. This is a Spanish-born French musician of Italian descent. So get your mind around all that. The lyrics are by Edith Piaf. Edith Piaf being one of the most widely known international stars to come out of France in the 20th century. A gorgeous golden voice with a little bit of an edge to it, or a little bit of a rawness to it that made her incredibly identifiable. La Vie en Rose, the French title, literally Life in Pink. It's the signature song of Edith Piaf, and it's written in 1945, then finally released as a single in 1947. And from there, the cat was out of the bag. The song became so popular in its English lyrics in particular. In the 1950s, there were 7 different versions that made it to the Billboard charts, from Tony Martin and Bing Crosby, Dean Martin, and of course Louis Armstrong's version. One of the great popular tunes of the 50s, and still today a standard that is well known and widely performed. We finally have words in a text to talk about here. These really are songs about love. The theme of La Vie en Rose, or Life in Pink, or Life Through Rose-Colored Glasses, I think is the expression that it most kind of closely relates to. It's this attempt to put a positive spin on the feelings of love and loss and sorrow that are at the core of the song's text. It's this unrequited love, and you're trying to see it see the positive in the negative. And that's really again, both sides are there. You're trying to make the most of it, but you're tortured by the love that you either have or are struggling to make. And that's love. You've just got to deal with it, but you try to deal with it through these rose-colored glasses, seeing life through the pink hues. And it's such a lovely tune. It sounds beautiful in this string quartet arrangement. We are so excited to have the music of Louis Guy and Edith Piaf on this Red Dress program. So that's 1945. We jump ahead to 1961. Can't Help Falling in Love. Can't Help Falling in Love is recorded by, of course, Elvis Presley for his 1961 release, Blue Hawaii. Massive sales and popularity for Elvis with this particular single. Went #1, it was platinum, more than 1 million copies sold, became his signature song. It was the song that closed his live shows in the late 60s and early 70s. The music is not written by Elvis, as is true for some of the pop singers of his generation. It is written by Hugo Peretti, Luigi Creatore, and George David Weiss. Not household names like Elvis Presley, but nevertheless the creative geniuses behind Can't Help Falling in Love. And even more interesting than that, the melody is based on a piece called Plaisir d'amour, another French chanson from the 18th century. Jean-Paul Martini, or Martini il Tedesco. This is a composer who is completely obscure, except for the fact that his melody became the basis for Can't Help Falling in Love by Elvis Presley in 1961. So the idea of can't help falling in love. Again, it's this magnetic pull of love. Can't help falling in love. It's the draw. It takes us over. It is something that blurs our judgment, makes us starved for love in the Shakespearean sense. And well, there it is. I never thought I would relate Shakespeare to Elvis Presley, but there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Pre-concert talk of the Idaho Falls Symphony. here alone by myself at home. I hope that would have gotten a laugh on the mic in Idaho Falls, and we will hope to have that. They laughed. Hey, Alex said she laughed. Okay, thanks, Alex. I'm so lucky to have at least an audience of one behind the scenes. And those of you watching on YouTube, thank you again for being here. We would like to have your questions. Put them in the comments. We can put them up here on the screen. We got lots of fun ways to answer your questions. So anything about the program coming up, and you can see the full program listing on our website, ifsymphony.org, where you can also get your tickets. But let me just describe the last piece on the program here, the love theme from the movie The Godfather of 1972. The Godfather, one of the great cinematic masterpieces, and a score by the Italian composer Nino Rota. Nino Rota learned a thing or two from Mascagni, his Italian compatriot. Nino Rota's music has, again, basically is able to do anything. And that was required of a film composer who, of course, needs to make their music speak to any situation, any scene. And so, like a great opera composer, needed to be able to evoke the scene without saying anything, for it to be a purely piece of instrumental music. So the love theme from The Godfather was first recorded for that 1972 film soundtrack. The film's music director was Carlo Savina, and his orchestra recorded the first version of the love theme. But no sooner had the movie come out in 1972, it was immediately co-opted for a pop song. It's Andy Williams' version called Speak Softly Love, with lyrics by Andy Cusick. So in effect, this melody was so effective at getting at the love, the essence of love, and the nostalgia, and this one is really melancholy, that it went straight into a song about love, Speak Softly Love, again, trying to tug at the heartstrings, and it worked. This is another work that became incredibly popular in the early 70s and really has staying power, more so probably than the film's theme itself. But we play the version from the film, again, our wonderful string quartet with piano. The piano part here is actually a part of the original score. And this is similar to Kreisler's Liebeslied and Liebesfreude. There's this nostalgic quality in this music. It's indebted to that folk song simplicity, the honesty, the sort of vulnerability of the characters, and the vulnerability of that feeling of being in love that is very sensitive, and is something that I think is captured beautifully by Nino Rota's original melody, which is very folk-like, very simple. It's incredibly charming. It has some really evocative intervals, sort of scooping around and making it very sung and very, very song-like. But it's that lyricism and that romanticism that is unmistakable as a love theme. I would say this is more along the Liebesleid, the sorrowful side of love. And that is, of course, appropriate for the dark themes of the film, The Godfather. I could go on and on. I do want to take your questions if we have any, but I would just like to say that this Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. Mountain Time, Music, the Food of Love, is the 17th annual Red Dress Concert, sponsored by Eastern Idaho Regional Medical Center. You can get your tickets at ifsymphony.org, and they're available now. They're available anytime. As this video will be, we will be able to share this video on our social media so that you can be up to speed on what the sort of background is for this wonderful concert. We're, again, so grateful for the musicians behind the scenes. Thank you to our string quartet and our staff for making the recording. Thanks to all of you for your understanding as we've been adapting to these times of COVID. And we do want to start planning the 72nd season of the Idaho Falls Symphony next year, which will continue to be streaming, we expect, but we certainly do hope to be back in the Civic Center for the Performing Arts very soon, and to have our orchestra and audiences be able to see each other and experience these concerts together once again, to share that love and camaraderie and companionship in the concert hall. We miss it. We miss all of you. And it has been so fun to take this program apart. Thanks for coming with me on this journey from the 18th century all the way through till the Hollywood movies of the 1970s. thank you so much for being here. We'll leave it at that. My name is Thomas Heuser, music director of the Idaho Falls Symphony. Thank you so much. And we will see you Saturday night at 7:30 p.m. Mountain Time for Music, the Food of Love. Enjoy, and thank you again.